And now, live in studio, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. He's a successful entrepreneur, published author, top listing agent, a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
Yes, here we are again another day, committed to picking a fight with the mainstream media and providing you the timely truth centered around real estate, credit, finance, estate planning, tax planning, and so much more. Over 80 show categories now with the Consumer Quarterback Show, and we all want to educate, empower, entertain, and engage you in an effort to help you win in any marketplace. Now, when we talk about engagement, how can you engage us? There's multiple ways. You can reach out to our hotline at 813-670-7372. We would love to hear feedback from you. You can shoot a text message or give us a call at 813-670-7372. You can also check out our website, consumerqb.com. Consumerqb.com is our website, blog site, a plethora of information available for you at consumerqb.com. You can see links to all of our expert contributors, the finest folks in all of Tampa Bay and the Gulf Coast region of Florida that we've assembled, we vetted, and we bring on the air to help you win in any marketplace. Now, we don't care if you're climbing a corporate ladder or if you throw a ladder in your truck on the way to work. This show's for you. We're going to help you win, making you just a bit more street smart every day. And this segment is brought to you by Kipton's, the Hotel Zamora on beautiful St. Pete Beach. I love going down there on the weekends and spending some time on the beach and relaxing in the pool area, the hot tub. And you also have, if you're a boater like me, you can bring your boats right up and dock right there. It's on the intercoastal side of the waterway there. It's the first new hotel built on St. Pete Beach in decades. Spanish ancestry, Mediterranean flair. And let them know the quarterback sent you, and you're going to get a 15 to 20% discount off your room just by using the REQB code. Just mention the real estate quarterback code, and you're going to get that discount off from Kempton's, the Hotel Zamora on beautiful St. Pete Beach. All right, Intelligent Talk Radio. I've got some intelligent folks here in studio with me today. Back in the house. Been a little while since he's been in studio here. Attorney Joe Cairns, managing partner at Cairns Law Firm. Welcome in, sir.
Yes, and in the world of family law, I'm seeing a lot of crossover with the other areas of law. So we'll talk about that a little bit today, too.
Nice, yeah, some crossover here. We also have attorney Jerry Slutzky coming up as well. And Ron Fuller is in the house as well, regional account executive, Centralized Showing Services. Welcome in, Ron.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for letting me be at your new studio. I like it.
Yes,
like
sir.
the new digs. I'm going to talk about you, talk a little update on Centralized Showing Service, and I've got a top 10 crazy traffic laws.
Yeah, that's going to be funny. We're going to have some fun with you. We love our top 10s around here, and to get you engaged and talk a little bit about some of these crazy traffic laws, and we're going to drop some other ones in there as well. And also in the house, attorney Jerry Slutzky, estate planning attorney. Welcome in, sir.
Thank you, Brandon. It's always a pleasure to be here. Do love the new digs, and it's a lot more convenient to my Safety Harbor office, so
That's
I appreciate
right.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely we love our new location here. A lot of prime time, drive time. Still, we're helping consumers. That's the number one goal. Is we want to reach out. We want to help consumers understand some of these buying decisions. Help you avoid a lot of that commission-based advice that's so prevalent in our community. We see it everywhere we turn, and everywhere you turn, you're getting hit by that commission breath that hits you sometimes, and you're just like, oh man, here we go. We also have an interesting story. We got a Tell Me Something Good segment coming up in the next segment here about the homeless man. An interesting article there as well, and good act of kindness getting rewarded. We love to hear that. And we're going to start you off with a little quote from Vince Lombardi here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. We got to talk about Vince Lombardi a little bit. And sometimes in life you want to call that audible. So here's an audible for you, talking about goal-oriented thinking versus reactionary thinking. Mental toughness is many things and rather difficult to explain. Its qualities are sacrifice, self-denial. Also, most importantly, it is combined with a perfectly disciplined will which refuses to give in. It's a state of mind. You could call it character in action. So that's a quote from Vince Lombardi, and it talks about how it's not so much about aptitude, it's about your attitude on a given day. And it's not so much about your IQ, but it's about I will or I can. And it's not so much about your smarts, but it's about your heart. You know, what's in that ticker there? What's helping you get through every day, and what's driving you and developing those positive habits. So, as you know, I'm a published author, professional speaker. We'd love to have you check out our book on Amazon, Become the MVP in Your Industry by Surfing the Radio Waves, available on Amazon.com. And we'd love for you to check that book out. Leave us a nice review, and we would love to hear from you on the show. Any positive feedback, anything you want to let us know, we'd love to talk about it here on air. So reach out to our hotline. Let's go ahead and jump into this great content. Family law attorney Joe Cairns in the house. What's new in your world, sir?
Well, I had an interesting issue kind of pop up for me yesterday. I had a client whose husband went into the hospital, and she had a power of attorney that she showed me. I said, wait a second. We filed for divorce a couple months ago. This could be a problem.
Yeah.
It turns out the law changed in about 2013 that if you have a pending divorce case, that power of attorney does not work anymore. So I was able to look up the statute and quickly get one of my friends who does real estate and say, listen, we need to change everything around.
Yeah.
So the important tip or lesson learned is that if you're contemplating some sort of dissolution of your marriage, or even some sort of separation, even if you're living in a different state, because Florida doesn't have a legal separation. They just have an express lane for the process. If you have that, we probably should be talking about some estate plan changes, because that's an unusual situation that would occur like it did, but that's why we have estate planning, so that you have those things in motion, because otherwise, you know, it could be the hospital making decisions, or you could end up in a guardianship proceeding, which is, it can be rather time-consuming and very expensive.
So if you're in a divorce situation, you might want to put that in so, before she's making decisions for you, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't want your potentially future ex-spouse to be making those calls in the midst of this situation when everyone wants to call it quits.
Right.
Joe, my question is, what was he in the hospital for?
I can't talk about the specifics of that specific one, but I will tell you that my client didn't do it.
I wondered if maybe he had a knife wound and his ex had the knife in her hand.
The Bobbitt kind of, oh no.
Wasn't a situation like that. She was not at fault. In fact, she actually was very, very concerned. It wasn't one of those type cases, but yes, she is not guilty.
Yeah. So family law, it's one of those situations you don't know. Like, okay, so all of a sudden now the relationship has gone sour, and if that other part of the family there, if your husband, wife, if you get into an accident, that person gets to an accident, legally, if you're still married, if you haven't filed, then you're responsible for all their medical bills. You're responsible for whoever they injured, right? You could be sued and named in a suit if that's the case.
Just think about anyone's marriage. There's joint bank accounts. There's houses that are owned. There's cars. Right. All of those things need to somehow be separated and placed in either individual names, or they need to be sold off, which is usually the case when you're talking about a house.
Right.
The problem that you can run into a lot of times is if you have one spouse who is a spendthrift.
Yes.
You file the divorce, and they are just gunning those credit cards up.
Yep.
The credit card, if it's a joint credit card, that company doesn't care that you're going through a divorce. They're going to go after whoever has the money to pay it. The divorce court can do it to an extent, but to the point that there's a third-party vendor that's involved, the court has no jurisdiction over them.
Right.
So you have to come up with some creative mechanisms to make sure that stuff gets paid.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you just joined us, I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes, top real estate agent here in Tampa Bay, host of the Consumer Quarterback Show. We're talking with Joe Cairns. He's a family law attorney here in Tampa Bay, and exploring some of these different situations that happen. Give us more, man. Give us, what do the listeners need to know when it comes to this situation? They need to, be proactive.
In a family law situation, the family law attorney that you're going to be talking to is aware that there are other areas of law they're going to connect. There's going to be situations where maybe bankruptcy is in everyone's best interest, and it might actually be in the interest of everyone concerned to delay the divorce process to get the bankruptcy done. There could be estate planning issues. There could be a business that's involved. And when there's a business involved, it really can elongate the process, because there could be a valuation. Everyone thinks that the business is worth $1 gazillion if it's really not their business. But those valuations have to happen so we can figure out, are there other assets that we can transfer? And it won't necessarily be that the family law attorney can handle all of those aspects. Most attorneys these days are specialized. That's why we have an estate planning attorney, and I'm the family law attorney that's here.
Yep.
So what I will do is I will reach out to an estate planning attorney and say, listen, we need these changed. Or I'll reach out to a business law attorney and say, we need someone who can do a valuation not only for the family law case, but maybe there's a valuation issue for tax purposes, for credit purposes, all of those things. Because if you do it for just one purpose, you might actually be causing a problem in another arena. So the family law attorney will be able to say, okay, we need to get these other people involved.
It's so important that you have an overall comprehensive financial blueprint in place. This is what we talk about on the show a lot, is making sure that your CPA is talking to your mortgage, and your mortgage folks are talking to your financial advisors, and your family law attorneys talking to your estate planning attorney. It's an all-encompassing wheel, and each thing's affecting the other aspect. And worst case scenario is you have something to where the other party, the other professional, is not informed, and then it's going to come into a major costly situation later down the line.
Well, if you have a more classic version of the family unit where there's a stay-at-home mom, the dad goes out and works, and that there's many different formats now. That Donna Reed style of family isn't the only style that's out there.
Right.
But those situations still exist. So if you have a spouse that really is completely blind to the financial circumstance, when a divorce comes, she's completely blindsided, or in some cases now, he's completely blindsided by what's going on.
Right.
So it's important that the attorney kind of lay out everything and be able to boil it down so that they understand, because if they don't understand, they're going to be petrified.
Yeah.
And they're already nervous because they're going through a process that maybe they never thought would actually occur.
Yep.
So making sure that you're taking the black abyss and you're kind of shading it with some degree of color so they know what's going on.
Right.
They immediately relax and they know that there's a plan and this is how we're going to take care of it. And maybe we do have to bring in some experts, third-party attorneys into that so that everybody knows what's out there and it can be done in a very amicable fashion.
That's right.
Because if it's not amicable, you're just going to spend a lot of money on attorneys that really don't want to go to trial. They make a lot of money going to trial.
Yep.
But I always tell my clients, I get a lot more business by being able to settle a case.
Right.
Because you refer my friends. Because if you go into a situation where the judge is going to make the call, you have no control over it, and you're almost assuredly going to be unhappy with it.
Yeah, and if it's a hostile situation, it's not good for either party. I mean, think about it. If you're in sales and you're dealing with your divorce before 9 o'clock, and then you're going to try to make sales calls, you're in a bad mood. It's hard to drop that baggage and going into a sales call. And then you also look at it when kids are involved. This is where it really just hits. It's such a tough note when it comes to the children being involved, and because the parents have such an ego, they got to try to win or whatever the situation is, and the poor kids suffer a lot of times.
There's really no such thing as a big win in a family law case.
Right.
There are better alternatives, but there's really no such thing as he has 5 points and she has 3 points, so he wins. That's not how it operates. And with the kids, it can be very difficult because, and I've talked about this before, the differences in between the counties can be starkly different on how they're going to operate as far as how the child, time sharing goes. Because they don't use the word, I always hear the word full custody. That actually doesn't exist. There's a time sharing, a parenting plan for when both kids are, when the kids are going to see both parents.
Yep.
So each parent is going to have a starkly different view of how that's supposed to happen, whether or not they want it to be 50-50 or if they want it to be some sort of shared parenting plan and some other, like an every other weekend type of thing.
Yep.
And the important thing is be practical when you're thinking about this.
Yes.
If you're an 80-hour work week kind of guy,
yeah,
you can't do 50-50. It's impractical for you to even believe you can even try to do it. It's not that you don't love your kids. It's just you've designed this family plan
that's right.
It doesn't work.
You'd be better off, working more summer into it or something along those lines, trying to make something.
And I always tell my clients, I don't care what you guys come up with. I'll give you some concepts. But anything you come up with, the court, if the two of you are looking like you're agreeing and you're able to co-parent with each other, they'll sign off on it. They may have a couple questions. Okay, how's this going to work? But if everyone's working together, the court really does not want to be involved in your life, and every single judge will tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. More from attorney Joe Cairns when we come back. Also, Ron Fuller coming into the conversation, and Jerry Slutzky, estate planning attorney here. And we're going to talk about a really cool story in our Tell Me Something Good. Homeless man gets apartment for helping concert bombing victims. This and more from our expert contributors here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, helping you win in any marketplace. Your number one consumer advocate. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Grant Cardone, and you've been listening to the phenomenal Brandon Rhymes, the Consumer Quarterback Show.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com.
Attention men under the age of 35.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
All right, we're back here. Brandon Rhymes here, Quarterback Show. Platinum MVP Realty and a top listing agent in Tampa Bay. Featured in Florida Realtor Magazine multiple times, Top Agent Magazine, the Business Journal, and recently reached in touch with Home and Garden TV, HGTV, reaching out, talking about one of our listings. So we'll see what happens there, but a lot of good things happening in Tampa Bay. All-star lineup here in studio today. Attorney Joe Cairns, managing partner at Cairns Law Firm. He's a family law and divorce attorney here in Tampa Bay. Ron Fuller, Regional Account Executive, Centralized Showing Services in the house, and attorney Jerry Slutzky as well, longtime friend of the program, estate planning attorney here in Tampa Bay as well. So, Joe, we were talking about the family law aspect, and you know, when you look at that type of a scenario, you know, the domestic violence sometimes comes into play. We also got to give a shout out to MJ Martinez as well, private investigator. So that is part of the aspects as well when you look at this scenario playing out.
Well, domestic violence has been something that's, you know, certainly the news outlets have certainly been. There's plenty of stories, real. There's video with many of those. You know, we see athletes involved in these types of situations. The important thing is there is a lot of actual domestic violence, and then sadly, the domestic violence court can be used as a tool to get some sort of advantage.
Right.
Because the way the process works is you file an injunction, and without anybody getting to say their piece, a temporary injunction can be entered.
Right.
And that could be a week, 2 weeks that you don't get to either see your kids or have access to your home. So the important thing is, if you're going to receive an injunction, immediately it's not my concern whether or not it's true or not.
Right.
It's you need to know what that injunction says.
Right.
Because if you then text that person,
right,
or you call them, or you try to even go around, like you call their parents,
right,
and say, hey, listen, what's going on? That can be construed as you attempting to make contact. You can end up arrested.
Wow.
And you may not have even done anything wrong. The injunction could be completely false, or really doesn't even meet the standard of a restraining order and injunction being involved.
Yeah.
But you violated the injunction. It's a misdemeanor. You can be arrested. And they take it very seriously because they're under the assumption there's an injunction, and you still you felt it necessary to contact that person.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
Oh,
Tough
yeah, it's very
situation.
difficult. So when you get those, you really should be on the phone with either criminal or a family law attorney. Both of those attorneys can handle that.
Yeah.
The way that I usually work it out with my criminal attorney colleagues is if it's really not a family law issue, it's more of a criminal and the injunction, the criminal attorney should be handling it. If there's kids involved, the family law attorney should probably handle the injunction with some consult with the criminal attorney so that if there's any sort of Fifth Amendment privileges, make sure those things are taken care of so that, listen, we understand you want to see your kids and you don't want an injunction against you, but criminal sanctions are much worse.
Yeah.
So you may have to
Big
do
time.
one before you do the other.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Tough scenario. Family law attorney Joe Cairns here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Let's switch gears. Let's bring Ron Fuller into the conversation as well. More from Joe in the conversation as well. We're going to bring Jerry Slutzky into the conversation as well. Talk about how family law crosses over with estate planning. We're going to dive deeper into that. But now we want to talk with Ron Fuller. He's a regional account executive, Centralized Showing Services. So what's happening in your world, Ron?
Oh, Brandon, we're really excited how we've grown in Tampa. We're getting a lot of new members in this area. We're working with Trendly for really great analytics. We're working with CoreLogic. We're just getting deeper into technology and integration and just constantly moving the bar in our service. So we're happy to help you with your real estate showing needs. But I want to brag on you, Brandon, because I know you won't. I've known you for years. Third time in a row, Florida Realtor Magazine named you a top agent.
Yes, sir.
And it's well deserved.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You do a great job, and I knew you would not. He wouldn't hit his own horn, would he?
Nope. Mr. Modest.
Yep. Yeah. So we're here to do that. Congratulations, Brandon.
Yeah, I appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, man, it's fun. When we look at the Florida Realtor Magazine, and let's talk about Centralized Showing Service as well, how you help streamline this process for real estate agents, anybody looking to show a home. I imagine you could even work with for sale by owners if you want. That's a process in itself that really adds a lot of value because you're talking about security, you're talking about convenience. Come to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Good professionals have a system in place. If you're a professional, you have a way of doing things. And so the really good agents out there hire us because they want a system. Missing a showing is disastrous. So there's so many things we do besides actually setting the showing appointment. But boy, that is, I always say, you don't try to sell your own home. You don't try to represent yourself in court.
Right.
Right. So it's just a matter of systems and being a professional.
Yeah, being a professional and streamlining the process, systems in place. And that's the key to business nowadays is you look at having structure, having systems, being proactive, adding more value. How can you add more value to the client? That's ultimately what you should be looking at as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner out there. And how can you streamline these processes? And that's something that Ron Fuller here with Centralized Showings will allow for and help you with that. You want to do this top 10? Jump into this,
brother? This is good. I'd love to jump into this top
10 crazy driving laws from around the world.
Well, this happens to be one of my favorite, but there's a lot of good ones. So in Topeka, Kansas, and it's great because guys, I'm booked in by 2 attorneys here, so you're gonna like this. It is illegal to transport dead poultry in Topeka, Kansas.
Okay.
Now I'm wondering if I own a Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, what that means, but
yeah, where are you going to get your chicken from?
So
kill it on site, I guess.
If you're calling it poultry, isn't it by definition dead? Otherwise, they're just chickens.
Right.
Good point.
I want to know the story behind why they passed that law.
Yeah, there's got to be something behind that one.
There's a story. Now this I'm really glad to know because next time in Boston, I don't want to get a ticket. In Boston, actually the entire state, it's illegal to transport a gorilla in your back seat.
A gorilla, huh? No gorillas in the back seat anymore.
We're not talking gorilla suit. We're actually, the real gorilla.
That's interesting. I've got one on this list here. Have a beer while driving in Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, you can drink an alcoholic beverage while driving as long as you don't get drunk. It says sipping a beer with one hand and navigating windy, treacherous roads on Costa Rica with the other. Totally legal.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong there?
I always wondered about that with the convenience stores having single bottles of beer on ice.
Yeah.
And I guess you're going to put those in your trunk while you drive home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they call them roadies.
Yeah, roadies. 0.75% it says is blood alcohol level down there. We're 0.08 down here, right?
0.08.
So 0.75 isn't that much higher?
Well, remember in the 80s,
0.075.
0.075.
Florida
Must
had
be
an
a
open
typo.
container law. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, open container law was good up through about 85, I believe.
Wow.
But this one is good. I handle Georgia as a territory, and I actually have family in Georgia. It's illegal, unfortunately, to drive through playgrounds.
Illegal to drive through playgrounds.
Yes.
Okay.
Even if the kids are not present?
No.
Don't eat.
Are you going to check first?
Here's the one we talked about. Keep your car clean in Russia. Better keep your car looking shiny and clean if you're in Russia, as a dirty car can get you fined up to 2,000 rubles, about $57, according to xe.com.
Do we have any Russian? Anyone?
Buttons, like any
That's
buttons
my heritage. Slutsky?
So is mine.
Slutzky?
Yeah, comrade, you got dirty car.
Comrade, you got dirty car, you're going to jail.
Does it cover the interior? Because if that's the case, my wife and I might have a little problem.
The interior?
Me
Is
too.
that- yeah.
Me
Sometimes
too.
you can't get caught up, man. You work so much and you're like, man, I got to clean this car.
Mobile trash
But,
can.
Yeah. Well,
What else you have, Brandon?
Well, when we come back, we're gonna jump into more of these top 10 crazy laws from driving laws from around the world, and more from our contributors here in studio. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about estate planning. Attorney Jerry Slutzky here in the house as well, and how that meshes with family law as well. And we want to give a big shout out to the Maids Cleaning Service. They do a great job cleaning our real estate properties. 24-hour, 100% satisfaction guaranteed by the Maids Cleaning Service. They are referred for a reason. They do a great job for us. And if you want to reach out to our hotline, 813-670-7372. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot a call or a text, 813-670-7372. And check out consumerqb.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Forbes Riley, celebrity TV fitness host and creator of The Spin Gym. I'm here today with Brandon Rhymes, and you're listening to the Consumer Quarterback Show. Great ways to get happy, healthy, and wealthy.
Listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-670-7372.
All right. Brandon Rhymes here, the Quarterback Show. Former USF football player, played on the inaugural football team at the University of South Florida a little over 20 years ago there. Think about that. But longtime quarterback on my sports teams, football teams, state championship games, and now we're quarterbacking transactions for our sellers, buyers, investors, and we're also quarterbacking introductions for all of our listeners out there. We want you to think about this show as the hub of your financial, your business, your real estate, your health and nutrition wheel. With over 80 show partners now with the Consumer Quarterback Show, we're going to be able to put you in touch with the best connections in all of Tampa Bay and the Gulf Coast region. That's the goal of the show. That's why we set this up over 4 years ago as a consumer advocate-based program to help you win. So we want to hear from you. Shoot us a call or a text message at 813-670-7372, 813-670-7372.
It's very nice.
And we're going to be nice to you when you call us. We're going to have fun. And we have a credit package, too. I'd like to go ahead and just offer out a credit package. It's going to teach you how to opt out of pre-screening, cut off your junk mail, come into your mailbox. Also, we have a system where you can sign up for identity alerts, identity theft prevention and alerts. So just text the word credit to our hotline, 813-670-7372. You got a free credit package. Going to teach you a lot of information about your credit, about how to save your identity from being stolen, which is one of the number one crimes these days, these cyber crimes that you're seeing out there. So Brandon Rhymes here, Platinum MVP Realty. Got a couple of hot listings I want to let you know about. I just listed this property in the Bayport area, Bayside area of Town and Country, 5208 East Longboat Boulevard in Tampa. $855,000 just listed. Beautiful property, 5 bedrooms, 3 and 1/2 bath, 4,161 square feet, pool home with bay access on a nice freshwater lake as well. So if you're a boater like me, you understand the value of having a freshwater lake in your backyard. As you come out of the bay, it's going to rinse your engines out, get that salt water out of there. Also, a beautiful renovation property here, rehab property at 701 East Crenshaw Street in Tampa. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, Harmony Heights subdivision. $260,000, just reduced down to $260,000. Great buying opportunity here, 701 East Crenshaw Street. Now, the owner did a great job, pool home here, and he completely remodeled the entire thing, and it's staged, and it's beautiful. It's a great property. So a couple of great buying opportunities here in beautiful Tampa Bay. All right, let's go ahead and back to our content here. We're talking in studio today. We got Intelligent Talk Radio, some intelligent folks here in studio with me. Joe Cairns, he's an attorney, family law attorney here, and managing partner of Cairns Law Firm, as well as Ron Fuller, Regional Account Executive, Centralized Showing Services, and we're going to bring attorney Jerry Slutzky into the mix as well, estate planning attorney. Jerry, so let's talk a little bit about what Joe was mentioning in that first segment when we talked about the crossover that you see with family law. How does that work out with your scenario?
Well, the family dynamic is totally encompassed with the estate planning process. Because whether you're getting married, whether you're getting divorced, whether a spouse has passed away, whether you have children, every aspect of it has to be considered in connection with the estate planning piece. Joe was talking about having a power of attorney. What happens if you're going through the divorce? I mean, when the divorce is complete, the law treats it as if the spouse has already predeceased you, although the best activity to do would actually be have a new power of attorney.
Yep.
But Florida law does allow you to revoke a power of attorney. Just Google revoking power of attorney Florida, and there is a process you can go through to revoke it. But the better practice is to actually prepare the new documents. Most of the other documents as well are impacted by a divorce. Once the divorce is complete, if you have a spouse that you're now divorced from, it's treated as if that spouse has passed away before you, and therefore they will not inherit anything.
Right.
The reverse is also true. If you have a will and you were not married at the time and you get married, the law calls that a pretermitted spouse, in which case the law basically writes you a new will saying, well, you've gotten married. It's as if you certainly would have intended to include the spouse, and at that point she's entitled to her spousal share, which is about 30% of the value of the estate. If that's not your intention before you get married, you should talk to either Joe or me about doing a prenuptial agreement to protect what the assets were, especially if there are children from before the marriage.
Right.
But it all ties together, every aspect.
Let's pivot there on the prenuptial, Joe. How does that affect when you see these? Are they easily broken? I mean, there's going to be variations in these prenuptial agreements, aren't there?
The ones that end up getting set aside are the ones that, hey, let's get a prenup before we get married. And they're going to get married on a Friday, and they're talking about getting this done on a Monday.
Yeah, you do it on the eve of the marriage.
Yeah.
Courts are going to say this was done in anticipation of the marriage, and they don't like that.
And the problem gets worse because if one spouse, usually one spouse has the money and the other doesn't. Sometimes they both have money and they both want to protect it. But if one spouse really doesn't have the opportunity to have this reviewed by anybody, that's putting it at risk. When I do prenuptial agreements, I want there to at least be like 90 to 60 days, because if there's a lot of assets we're talking about, there needs to be some discovery process.
Right.
If it's a matter of she's going to keep her house that she still has and he's going to keep his, that's an easier subject. But when there really is an uneven playing field, you got to be careful. I usually videotape, have a videographer present for when everyone's signing it. That way there isn't any, I was distraught, I was crying, I didn't understand what the document says, because I'll go through the questions almost like I'm taking a deposition, so that prenup, if it has to be utilized, we have it on tape. Everything's fine.
Yeah,
that's kind of the best practice that I've been using.
Yeah,
and Florida does also recognize post-nuptial agreements.
Okay.
You can agree to give up rights after you've gotten married, but it requires full disclosure on both parties as to all assets and the values of them.
And you can't threaten the other side, if you don't sign this, then we're getting divorced. You can't use that as the tool. That would be duress and under the law.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, when you look at that, you think about the scenarios that play out. So you've got to, as a listener out there, we want you, maybe you're watching our TV show version as well on WeBeam TV, or streaming it from our website, consumerqb.com. You can watch it there as well. By the way, you can find all of our expert contributors' contact information under our expert contributors link, and you can also submit a form directly there. If you have any questions, we'd love to engage you at consumerqb.com. Just submit the form there at consumerqb.com. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. We're talking with attorney Joe Cairns, family law attorney here in Tampa Bay. Jerry Slutzky as well. He's an estate planning attorney as well. And we've also got Ron Fuller in the house, Centralized Showing Services. So, Jerry, what else in this area? What are you seeing? What's kind of trending in this area of estate planning right now?
Well, it's not so much trending. Where I actually wanted to go with this was to give a shout out to my father, Irving Slutzky. He's in Chicago. He's 5 weeks away from his 100th birthday,
nice,
which is absolutely wonderful. I'm thankful that both of my parents are still alive.
Great, man.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can no longer say that they're alive and well. Yeah. My mom is starting to show some signs of dementia, but my father just a few days ago had a horrible fall. He stepped down where he thought that there was just a step. He doesn't see well. It turns out it was a 10-foot drop.
Oh,
so here you got a 99-year-old man falling 10 feet, hit his head, broke his kneecap, and so he's not doing well. I'm worried about him. But the reason I share that story is not to depress your listeners, but more to really emphasize the need to have all of the estate planning and documents in place. You know, obviously people want a will or a trust, but in this case, my brother, who also lives in Chicago near my parents, he has a power of attorney. He has a healthcare power of attorney. In Florida, they're called healthcare surrogates. But at least now he has the ability, since my mom isn't able to make those types of decisions for my father, he has the legal authority to be able to handle everything that needs to be done for my dad. He can write checks. He can deal with the doctors. Everything that's required is covered. And so I do encourage your listeners, even if it's not for them to protect their kids, that if their parents are still alive, first of all, kiss them, give them a big hug, because you don't know when the last day is going to be, but make sure that you have the necessary powers and rights to protect them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important, because if you think ahead, if you're proactive in these situations, you know, the worst case scenario is you're sitting in a hospital somewhere and you're waiting on the forms to show up, you're waiting on things, and you can't get the proper medical procedure that you need.
Yes. Yeah, and it's also important, you know, most hospitals will have you fill out a healthcare surrogate and a living will if you're there, but you have to be conscious, you have to be lucid to be able to do that, but they will not do a power of attorney. And Florida durable power of attorney laws are quite specific in what they have to say and what they can't say. So the thing to do is, while you're young, healthy, and well aware of what you have and what you need to do, get it done, so it's one less thing to worry about.
Well, that's pretty awesome to hear, man. Your dad's 99 years old. Hopefully he hits that century mark. That'll be great.
We're planning a big party for family. Our family does like family roasts. It's so huge of a family. Instead of just buying presents, we tell funny stories. We write funny songs. So
That's
it's
great.
Yeah, it's a laugh fest and a cry fest. Everyone has a wonderful time.
That's interesting, man. Yeah, I like that.
Hand to my family.
Yeah. I remember a lot of our reunions in growing up, they would, have guitars playing music and just, singing and stuff like that. Let's stick with the feel-good story here. Let's go ahead and tell me something good. All right, so interesting story here. Homeless man gets apartment for helping concert victims. So we all heard about the big bombing that happened last week. 2 homeless men who rushed to the aid victims in the Manchester terror blast will be getting the royal treatment for their selfless efforts. And Stephen Jones, 35, was asleep outside near Manchester Arena when he heard the blast that killed 22 people and injured 59 on Monday night. And upon seeing a lot of children with blood all over them and crying and screaming, he swung into action, pulling out the sharpnel, and he was rewarded for his efforts. West Ham co-chair David Solomon and his son offered to pay rent on a house for him for 6 months. So he got it. There was a tweet that was sent out. Me and my dad want to rent the homeless man in Manchester a house for 6 months to get him on his feet. If anybody can get us in touch with him, would be appreciated. So they found Steve and they gave the gentleman the 6 months. So pretty awesome story right there. So being proactive, being a force for good in the community, like we talked about. Here's a guy sleeping outside of a concert. Here's a big bomb, and he says, and I actually saw the interview on TV. He said actually on a smartphone now. It used to be TV. Now you're seeing the videos on your smartphone more and more. But he just said he wouldn't feel right if he just didn't do anything. He said he felt like helping people out.
When I was in college, a situation like that, I'm accused of literally being willing to talk to anyone at any time.
Yeah. Social butterfly.
Yeah, that's me. But in college, our philosophy class, we got a pop test on our second class that we had in philosophy. And the question was, who's the name of the guy that's your janitor?
Oh, wow.
And you don't think, maybe you did meet him, maybe you didn't have an opportunity. But
that's right.
At the time I did, because I saw him in there. We started talking about sports because he was from Philadelphia. I wasn't. So, it's important you can meet some pretty cool people in just about every walk of life.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, when we come back, we're going to jump into our lightning round. We're going to talk top tips, things to do, things to avoid. We're going to finish up this top 10 list as well. The top 10 of what was that, Ron? The top 10 what? Crazy driving?
Traffic laws.
Yeah, top 10 driving laws around the world and more from our expert contributors. So stay with us. Don't touch that dial. Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
Hey, this is Jarek Robbins. You are listening to the Consumer Quarterback Show with Brandon Rhymes. Please do what it takes to learn all that you have to live the life you want to live it fully, and find a way to give it by paying it forward to others.
Get in touch with Brandon online at consumerqb.com.
Hi, Jackie Skelton from JR World Travel here. If you travel, you need a licensed professional travel consultant, not a computer. Your licensed professional consultant can get you more for your time and your money. Value for your money and experience, not marketing salesmanship. When you're sick, you call the doctor. When you need legal advice, you call an attorney. So the next time you want to go on any type of travel, call your licensed professional travel consultant who actually represents you. We specialise in group travel, family reunions, weddings, to escorting large groups or making special arrangements for the disabled. Please call 844-249-0190. We are a full-service travel consultancy offering worldwide concierge service. Air, land, sea, rivers, resorts, locally, nationally and internationally. Remember that number, 844-249-0190.
You're listening to the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
All right. Brandon Rhymes here, Quarterback Show. Platinum MVP Realty is our premium sponsor. We got a couple of hot listings from Platinum I want to let you know about. 10616 Cape Hatteras Drive in Tampa. Now, this is a beautiful home. It's a gated community inside a gated community here in Palm Bay, that Bayport area, that town and country area of Tampa. 4 bedrooms, 2 and 1/2 bath, $398,000 pool home with a spa on a conservation lot. Beautiful property. Great opportunity. Open house coming up as well on this one. 7657 132nd Way. Just reduced from $417 down to $399. Owner is motivated on this property, so reach out. 7657 132nd Way in Seminole. Whispering Forest, 4-bedroom, 3-bath property, just reduced down to $399,000. Another beautiful pool home that we have here in Tampa Bay. So reach out. Consumer hotline is 813-670-7372. 813-670-REQB is the acronym there for the end of the phone number, 670-7372. Also, consumerqb.com. Just submit the form at consumerqb.com. All right, in studio today, attorney Joe Cairns, family law attorney, Ron Fuller, Centralized Showing Services, and attorney Jerry Slutzky, estate planning attorney here in Tampa Bay. And Jerry, so estate planning, it's an interesting topic, and you've been doing it for many years.
Well, it's one of those topics that nobody really wants to think about. You mention estate planning at a party, and they kind of start shuffling away, and yeah, we know we got to get it done. And,
yep.
But the whole idea is simply do it. It's not an if question; it's a when question.
Yep.
Whether you become incapacitated or pass away, we're all going.
That's right, man.
And that's also part of my message to your listeners is, I'm 2 days away from my 65th birthday.
Nice.
And I'm going to be celebrating it. My darling bride, Helen, and I will be dancing in a dance showcase. So I will be spinning her around the dance floor.
Nice.
And so the message I want to share is you've got to enjoy every day because you don't know what the following day is going to be.
That's
right. So I do like to share 3 tidbits of useful information. Number one, especially to your listeners who are in their car right now, if there's any road rage, if you're angry and you're angry with somebody, let it go.
Let it
Forgive them. You give them power over you and you can't move forward.
That's right.
Easy for me to say, hard to do when you're in the midst of it.
That's right.
But you got to let go of the anger. Number 2, if you're not happy with where you are in life, change it. Don't say, when this happens, I'll do that. Start changing it one thing at a time, one baby step at a time, because sending positive energy out into the world is a lot better. It'll bring back positive energy.
That's right.
Sending negative energy will bring that back to you. And the third is, if you love somebody, if you're lucky enough to be in that kind of relationship, tell them every day.
Yep.
I was in a meeting this morning and I asked, as a birthday present to me, please, on the way home, stop and buy your spouse a flower.
There you
do
go.
Something nice that they would want. And yes, ladies, men do like flowers.
Yeah, random act of kindness. I love that.
That's it.
I love that, man. And the number two, not happy. If you're not happy, it's only one person to blame. It's yourself. You got to change the circumstances, change that surrounding. And of course, number one, you start off with there is if you're harnessing anger, it's not going to do anything but hurt you in the long run. And it is easier to say sometimes, but you've got to let it go. And that's the great nuggets of advice. That's kind of leading us into our lightning round.
The lightning round.
I am so good at lightning rounds.
I majored in lightning rounds.
Majored in lightning rounds. All right, so what this is, your top 10 things to do, things to avoid, nuggets of advice. Attorney Joe Cairns, you're up first, sir.
If you are served with court papers, I don't care what area of the law we're talking about, please read those papers. There's timelines on things. And second, you're going to get things in the mail if there's an open case. Check your mailbox. I know most of us get everything through email, but there still are government agencies that love to do everything by letter. Check your mailbox.
Yeah, check it out. Be proactive. Don't ignore it. Don't put your head in the sand. Nuggets of advice there. All right, Ron Fuller, nuggets of advice.
Nugget of advice, hire a professional. If you sell homes, hire us to make sure they're shown and the data and the feedback is done correctly. And I want to give a shout out for Monday, Memorial Day. Thank you, veterans.
Yes. Yeah, great one there. And mentioning the veterans as well, we've got two great lenders associated with our show that have some great veteran loan programs, going to rebate money back to the veterans. Platinum MVP Realty, I'm the owner of that company. I'm a top listing agent. We also will rebate either a quarter to a half a point, depending on the loan size or the sales price, to the veterans. So if you know of anybody out there, we are definitely a friendly veteran community here, and we want to help you out there as well. So great point. I appreciate that, Ron. Jerry Slutzky, top tips, things to do, things to avoid.
Digital assets. We all, at this point, have social media accounts. We have email accounts. We have online storage. Somebody needs to know about all of this, because if something happens to you and you're not able to share with them how to get in, how do they know it even exists?
Yep.
Bitcoin accounts. I personally have probably 20 different bills that automatically get paid out of my checking account every month. Well, somebody needs to know not only that that's happening, but how to get in there to turn it off.
That's right. Yeah, passwords. We talked about, who has the passwords for your banking, who has the passwords for all of these different social accounts. You think about how many passwords we have today, right? How many usernames and passwords, and you got to be careful because you can't make them all the same either, because then that makes it easier for the hackers. So there's a lot of things that you got to be cognizant of and be proactive about when it comes to that area of your life and business. All right, let's do another round here, Joe. Top tips, things to do, things to avoid.
Certainly things to avoid, and I'll piggyback on when you're angry at something. In your married life or the relationship you have with either your girlfriend or boyfriend, there's going to be things, there's going to be arguments. You're probably best to take a walk around the block.
That's right.
Because if you let it escalate, it's just, it could really ruin your life. There's been plenty of situations where that one instant, boom, your whole life changes.
Yeah.
So just, you're going to have to get over it. Might as well get over it quickly.
And practice placing an area, and this happens just in everyday life, too. Mm-hmm. Think about how we go about life, and it's faster and faster every year, every week, because of the texting, the tweeting that's out there, all the different social media. And think about the natural response a lot of times in a conversation. And I know, I understand conversations need to have some type of a flow, give and take, but especially when it's dealing with money, relationships, or a heated argument, that's a great point you make there, Joe, is take an extra second, breathe in deep, count to 10, count to 5, whatever it is, and just analyze what was said. Kind of like Covey used to say in his 7 Habits, he would say, listening not with the intent to reply, but just fully listening and bringing in everything that person says. And when you come from an area of understanding, you're going to be able to be that much more clear, and it's going to be that much more thought out, and it's going to be appreciated by the other person that you're talking with.
And don't tweet when you're angry. You sound ridiculous.
Or drunk.
Is that a shout to our president? That's out to the president there, maybe.
It may, but not necessarily just him.
Yeah. A lot of people as well. All right, Ron.
Piggybacking on the anger, road rage. Most people that commit these terrible road rage acts have never really committed a crime or have a record. Your anger can get so jacked up because a dude cuts you off in traffic.
That's right.
back it off. It's never worth it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Road rage, you see it happen, and it's one of those things that it's out there, and the person just all of a sudden pulls a gun or whatever it ends up being, instead of like you think about the old school. Back then it used to be a fist fight. People nowadays want to, you never know what they're going to pull. So be careful. I like that. No road rage. Jerry Slutzky.
I'm going to piggyback off the same thing. I used to advise all of my clients. I did family law. When I practiced in Chicago. I chose not to do that anymore. My condolences, Joe. but what I would tell them, because people, they're in the midst of a furious situation very often,
right?
And whether they're going through a divorce or even if you're with somebody you love and you're having an argument, the best thing is to have a few rules of combat in place. Number one, take a moment, actually set an appointment to discuss it. It could be 5 minutes from now. It could be an hour from now. But calm down, sit down. Rule number one, no yelling.
Right.
Number two, no name calling or profanity.
Yep.
And number three, one person gets to talk without interruption and say everything on their mind.
That's right.
The other person should then repeat what that person said to show that they understood and they heard what was said.
I like that.
And then they get a turn to respond. You
like
can't fight unless people are yelling at each other or talking over each other.
It all comes down to respect, man. It all comes back down to respect, the golden rule, and doing as to others as you want to be done to you. Exactly. So,
exactly.
Hey, another great show. I want to thank our expert contributors. I want to thank all of our listeners and viewers out there. And we want to remind you to please go out there and consider committing your own random act of kindness. Something as simple as packing up leftover food, carrying it with you to and from your commute to work, maybe handing it to that person that you see in need, and be a force for good in the community. Go out there and volunteer, donate some time or money, and continue to tune in here to the Consumer Quarterback Show. We're going to help you win over 80 categories of consumer advocate content. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Contact Brandon Rhymes at 813-670-7372. That's 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time for The Consumer Quarterback Show. Weekday afternoons at 5 on AM 1380.